Welcome to this 9th UnConference from Cryptoeconomics Hub. And today we'd like to have a general open discussion about this hot topic of token curated registries and other variations. And what we're going to do is, first of all, let me ask you if you have any idea or understanding already of the topic itself, because I have prepared a very small presentation about the basics, but if everybody is already up to date, maybe there is no need, or I can go faster through it. So let me know.
Well, I'm familiar. Yeah.
What about you, Florent and Luis?
I'm quite familiar. Hi, everyone. Luis, I've been following you guys for a couple of months now. It's my second meeting. I met you guys in Madrid. Just a quick intro. Congrats, first of all, for these very interesting meetups. And in my case, Token Curated Registries. Yes, it's like I mentioned in the chat, in the group, Telegram group. I've been very interested in this topic. So I've invested some time into researching, and I can't wait to hear more from your perspective, from this crypto economic perspective.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and on my side, I'm really interested in those kind of things and mechanism design and how we can make systems more autonomous. So I was familiar with it, but I didn't know it was called like this actually. And so for this meeting, I did some research, so I'm quite familiar with the topic as well now. So as you want, really, if you want to do a little refresher, but I got the idea, personally speaking.
Okay, well, that's excellent. What I'm going to do then is skipping through the basic stuff, but going over the presentation as maybe a structure of our open discussion then. And after that, the idea was to let Maksim present a real use case of TCRs in his very own project. And then after that, let's go deeper into the discussion and maybe go across all the cryptoeconomics aspects of the technology itself. So I assume you can all see the presentation or the screen that I've shared now. So, okay. As you know, TCRs are about making lists, which we as humans have pensioned to do so a lot, actually. And it's apparently going back to Umberto Eco, a tendency to avoid death in the end, because we like infinity and things that are infinite, but to be able to grasp infinity, making lists is actually a way to diminish a little bit this infinity, even if you did never reach the end. But anyway, so the origin was from AdChain, a project at Consensus, and the person leading this research is Mike Golden. I've put here a link to the first version of the paper. And really, as a I think still valid definition of TCRs, so they are decentrally curated lists with intrinsic economic incentives, which is important, for token holders to curate and list content judicially. So we really want to empower people and put the correct incentives in line so that we get to the best quality of a list, and we assume that the value of the token involved in curating that list will reflect that quality, and also strengthen the network effect around one particular list. So there are three participants or types of participant. There are the consumers who want high quality lists, so they will consume the information within the list. Candidates who want to be included in the list or include new listings in that list. And then token holders who will curate the list, and what they are after is an increase of the value of their assets that they staked into that list. So we can already see some mutual dependency within or between the participants of a TCR, because how the logic goes is that the token value should increase if more candidates propose more listings and more consumers are interested in the lists, right? But this goes in direct opposition to what the token holders might be interested in. So stated in reverse, if the quality of the list increases, so more consumers are interested in the content, then more candidates will want to propose more listings or be included in the list. This will drive the demand for the token of the list and therefore increase the price of the token of the TCR. All right, so there are dependencies between all those three participants, and the objective here is to align correctly the incentives so that each and every one is satisfied with the outcome. So how it works, you're already familiar with that, but quickly, so you deploy a contract, then to actually upload something to the list, candidates must buy some tokens in order to pay for a deposit that you have to pay as to produce a valid application. So the candidate then make the application to the TCR, and a challenging period opens to let the token holders curate the list. So to decide if this new application should be included in the list or excluded from the list. And they do so by voting, which means by staking tokens to that specific application. And
can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
So I think this is a very ingenious system, but if an appliant doesn't apply, and it's still like a big guy in the market, let's say, system can kind of prevent companies to go on this listing, right?
So you mean if a candidate doesn't pay the deposit?
Yeah, let's say like it's not a big player, but it's like a average player, you know, but it still take part of the offer, you know, in whatever we list. And it's kind of, and if he doesn't see the interest of being in that list, then he will not be willing to apply and put the deposit and all that stuff, right? And go through the process.
Yes, but say that list becomes really important, or the rest of the candidates are willing to pay for the deposit, then consumers will pay attention to the list, right? And eventually, even if it's a big player, as you say, one specific candidate, he will have, in theory, an interest to be included and therefore to afford the deposit in some way. But I agree with you that the deposit, the value of the deposit is part of a parameterization of the TCR, which is tricky, right? Because you don't want to exclude people from being candidates, assuming they have valid applications, but you don't want the deposit to be too low, so that your list will be, trashed with a fake application.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is surely a trade-off that you have to take into consideration, and it's even a point I would like to touch in the end. But a way to make it better, in the second iteration of the paper, they actually suggested to delete the deposit entirely, and we'll see that at the end.
Okay.
This is just the really basic structure of a TCR, so that we are on the same page. Okay, so when the challenging period ends, then what can happen to a candidate's application is it's accepted, and then the candidate can keep its deposit or withdraw it, but then the listings get excluded from the list. or it is rejected. And in this case, the deposit itself is divided up as reward amongst the token holders who participated. So the deposit is split into all the token holders that participated into the curation of the list as a reward. Okay, so with that in mind, how do we make sure that each participant see a desirable outcome coming out of this TCR, and he's in a comfortable situation regarding his or her own incentives? So candidates are cautious in making applications, and this is going back a little bit to the deposit question earlier. But if you think you should be included in the list, then paying for the deposit with the probability of seeing your deposit being how do you say, taken from you if the application is rejected, is a real threat. But if you're almost sure that you will be on the list, then you can afford it. So actually, candidates that are not really sure to be included won't probably make an application. And this is all based on the amount of money that the deposit represents, that will establish that marginal probability of being included. So there is this first aspect. And then if you see token holders by themselves, regardless of everyone else, they should challenge and reject all applications, right? Because then they can keep the deposits for themselves. But what would happen in that case is that the list would be empty and therefore useless, and nobody would pay attention to it, and therefore the token would be worthless altogether, right? So there is a trade-off again in between, in theory. So the equilibrium should go towards a really interesting list and really judicially curated to only provide to consumers valid information and interesting information. Then there is a list of attacks that is mentioned in the paper that are possibilities, real possibilities. So you could have people trolling the list, trying to add garbage to the list, because in their case the deposit is not high enough, for instance, right? And so you could reach a point where the token holders or the people participating into curating that list will simply won't simply have enough time to go through all the application, because it's garbage anyway. But that would maybe still not be enough to trash completely the list, which is the purpose of the second attack, equivalent to a 51% attack, meaning that one huge whale token holder would be capable of accepting or rejecting listings in the list simply because he possesses a majority of the stakes in the token itself. Then the third one is registry poisoning. And this is because a listing, so an application, let's say, is included in the list, and for the reasons that it has been accepted, later in the future, the value of those parameters is going down. So what was true at the time is not true anymore in the future. Say a university is doing really bad in the future, or worse in the future than it was doing at present when it was included in the list in terms of success of the students or whatever. And so you need a way to counteract this attack, to be able to review it. And this can cause also issues within the list. Then there is a vote splitting. So to be on the safe side, you could say as a token holder, well, I'm going to vote for both rejecting an application and accepting an application at the same time, so I don't lose in either side. And this is not good, obviously. And then vote memeing, which would be a similar to the vote splitting, but in this case, you would try to only vote on the side where the majority is always voting, regardless of your own opinions, right? So you just imitate the rest of or you try to imitate the rest of the token holders, maybe by having discussions offline or on the side. And so again, you don't reach a high quality list because there are other interests at play here. And I guess there are more attacks that will be discovered and theoretized later. And a finishing note, maybe to open the discussion that we're going to have later. So in my opinion, from what I could read, which wasn't, I mean, a lot. There is a huge amount of literature on the subject. But I think the governance of the parameterization of the list is an open question. How do you properly decide to set up the parameter and then maybe to change them in the future? There is the reduction of the attack space that we've just mentioned. I haven't seen a solution for specific solution for each one of the aspects. And then there is the issuance of the token of the list itself, which actually has led to a bunch of flavors and subcategories of TCR or augmented TCRs, depends on how you want to put it. Like, for instance, the bounding curve type of TCR that deal with that question in a specific way that we can discuss later. And maybe you will have more suggestions as other new and other open questions for the discussion. So that's it from my side. Any questions or comments about this brief introduction?
No,
If not,
good.
It's very clear.
Excellent. So Maxim, if you want to continue with your presentation, whenever you're ready. Hello, Maxim?
Wait, can you hear me?
Yes, you are muted.
So, yeah, I was muted, yeah. Presentation, it's will be from one side. I'm like, as a founder and a CEO of Sentiment, so I have my perspective how I want to build. And there is another guy, maybe I know, maybe some of you know him, Dimitri, who was really like mostly implementing. I will send now a link, but he is not available today, in our Cryptoeconomics hub. Yeah. It's more like just share it. Maybe if you want, you can share in the screen. But it's a big as like our complete token economy, not even the final. So you can keep it as a reference when we're talking about it. An idea for us in a token curated list. It's like we're the platform with high quality content for crypto assets, yeah, for cryptoeconomic or for everything related to crypto. Now we like tackle it from different sides, specific data and APIs and all the stuff, AI and whatever. And there is one specific part in it. It's like human generated content, and it fits perfectly into token curated list. But we had to adjust it a little bit. It's not. It's quite different in some aspects what you described. Because the motivation of people when they consumers of the list is a little bit different, or at least in our case. Now, imagine the situation. You actually need high quality financial content. Yeah, whenever you make a decision, so like you're just keeping tracking what's going on in crypto. So you are in demand, and there are actually limited set of experts who have some skills. And the skill, it's a kind of very subjective criteria, because skill can be different. It can be like, I don't know, pure speculative trading skill. Maybe some have it, or some have skill in estimating the general trend, which is like changes not so often, or some other have skills in finding out what interesting is happening in the project, which not so many people see, like we call it an insight, and so on and so on. Like very different experts have different set of skills. Now, you definitely don't want these experts to do any hurdle, to pay any deposit, anything in order to be part of the system. So for us, it was like no go from the very beginning. We don't demand anything from anyone who wants to be an expert. In an opposite, you as a consumer, you want to have only in your screen what is valuable for you. So it's your task for the whole flow of data, which is like going through the system, to pick up those who you believe to be valuable for you. Yeah, and once you have your list, it has a value. It becomes value for yourself, and then it's up to you. You can share it with others if you want to monetize, or just keep for yourself, because your main incentive is from this all medium noise around to get some super informative and high quality content for you. So you're picking up experts, you're interested in it, you incentivize, and you keep this list for you. So it's like, in short, how the system is working for us. And we actually don't call it Token Curated Registry. For us, it's Token Curated Lists, because we had to adjust too many parameters to keep it in the initial stage. And yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please. I'm here to get feedback and questions.
Okay, cool. No, just to be sure. So at the beginning, you as a consumer, or you actually are, when at the beginning, one person is actually doing the 3 roles at the same time, correct?
No experts like providers of information. It's a separate entity.
But I mean, you are curating your own list at the beginning, and then if you decide to share it and make it public or whatever, then other people will join and do what we've seen in the TCR stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would say that basically that's all. What we had to adjust a little bit, and the development is still ongoing process. I don't know exactly, we don't have like any specific release date, because it's only one part of what we're doing. But I would really like to have some talks and thoughts and feedback. And as I shared the link, also we can go, or you can go like later, see through it and make your comments, because none of us saw working example. So this is an experiment. I have no idea if this one is working example. I assume there will be some problems, but I don't know yet what kind of problems we can experience.
Yes, because I mean, one thing I remember from the version 1.1 of the paper is that they were suggesting precisely to get rid of the deposit, for instance, to eliminate that sort of buyer of entry for people to start doing lists and participate. And if I understood correctly, the idea was to let the community, consumers, evaluate if a deposit, which doesn't have to be 0, but it can be, is enough or is protecting enough the quality of the list itself. And so they hope in some I'm sure, crypto-economic way, but they hope that the consumers will take care of setting the price of the deposit. That can evolve with time as well.
Okay. Maybe the difference here is that we have a kind of global, I don't know how to call it, heap, like I say, raw data. I call it like raw data feed of people insights, which by default has no value. Yeah, like it can be anything. So it can be 95% of spam possible. Now, out of this long feed, you as a consumer or like a list creator motivated to pick up what is important. And you pick up by creator. Once you identified someone who's a value, well, likely will follow him unless you, in some point of time, unfollow and say, okay, no, he like keeps talking nonsense for too long time. And then this question how to get rid of spam or useless, it doesn't exist so strict because we introduce another part which is a kind of, well, it's not really moderators, but we're like considering maybe it's only like spam parators, and can be done like in many different ways, starting from super complicated machine learning stuff, which identified with the text as pure spam, or like selected by community set of moderators who may be paid by some token, or in our case, some token conditions, just to keep spam out of and like marking spam. This is how we planning to deal with situation as well. But yeah, no deposits. It's because it was, from user perspective, it's quite ridiculous inviting experts and asking them to pay.
I have a question then.
Yes.
Not related to the expert version, let's say, but if there is in general no deposit, who's going to pay them?
No.
Because there's obviously work, and someone has to pay for this work.
It's more that once you are picked up by more and more people and considered to be an expert, you as a content creator can start charging, and it's clear on the system how popular you are and how much you can charge. So it's more developing in this direction of token economy.
Okay, like this is now to the expert, but I thought it was in general that if we create this system, but without the deposit idea.
So you're asking, Sandra, in general, if we don't have deposits?
So I don't really understand what is then the incentive. Because we have three players, right? We have the people that are actually creating the list and also looking after the content. Then we have people that want to be in the list. And this can be because they have a business or whatever, or there are web pages that need to be seen. And then we have users that are willing to give something. So either they want to go to a place and give money there, or they want to give their attention to an article.
Yes.
And if we take the deposit away, who is then, then I don't understand who is going to pay, because the users, they won't pay.
There is
no. This is a difference in our case. High quality financial content has high value. People will pay for it. Well, people paying for it. So in our case, because maybe it's specific for us, the end users are paying for it. Yeah.
So in a specific topic, which is really exclusive content, I can understand it. But in a situation, let's say we look for a place to go for dinner, I will never imagine someone to pay for this information.
Exactly. Yeah. This is just different use cases where, example, you give a recommendation for dinner, even though I would not exclude, but it's unlikely. Yeah, I would say it's unlikely. Where for us, it's very likely. Yeah. But yes, you're right. Yeah.
You wanted to say something to this?
Yes, sorry, I was muted. there is no, in my opinion, I haven't seen a scheme where there is direct the transaction for the work of curate a list. What the token holders are going to expect is for their stake that they have in the list will go up in price. So at some point you might decide to sell part of your stake in that list to do whatever you feel like doing. But there is no,
But if price goes up, this means someone wants to buy. And who wants to buy if the token has no meaning? If no one needs a token for anything in this system, who is going to buy the token?
No, sorry. So when I said that you could get rid of the deposit altogether, it's the deposit as a fixed value in the setting up of the TCR. What Mike Goldin was suggesting in the next version of the paper was to let consumers evaluate if the deposit is high enough to protect the list from being filled with trash, basically.
Ah, okay. So I misunderstood.
Yeah, so you will always need to do a deposit if you want to be included in the list.
Yeah.
It's really a small one. I don't know. It's an investment that candidates will have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think now when I'm listening, I think it's just two different kind of systems. One, when you actually basically you're doing advertising something, so you are paying for the future attention to you. It's like a list of good places to eat for dinner. They fall into this category. And second, it's a high quality content which people are looking for and ready to pay for it. So it's in our category. And based on this categorization, the token economy will look differently. So in a case which you, Sandra, mentioned, and which is, I think, initially was the reason for Token Curated Registry, it's how to let people promote, but also ask of community vote what they consider to be good quality, kind of, to curated promotion, something like this. And so maybe it's the majority of the cases. What we have here, it's a kind of minority, and it's a little bit different model. Could be,
Yeah. I have also a question to all of you. What do you think? How much should we let the market decide, and how much governance should we include in this whole process? Would you say the market should totally decide on its own, or would you have some governance behind which will protect for extreme situations that can happen or something like this?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm going to try, maybe not to answer it, but to go further in the discussion. Because as I was mentioning in the presentation, one of the open question is the issuance of the token. So as far as I understand, for basic TCRs or TCRs 1.0, there is an issuance of token which is pre-minted at the beginning. So you issue, I don't know, 1 million tokens, and then you distribute them, or you start interacting with the list. Another way of doing that, which has its own problem, for instance, of adoption, another way of doing that, I think, is what Simon de la Rouvière was suggesting. Well, I think he's the one who started talking about continuous TCRs or bonding curve, which is that instead of pre-minting all the tokens, you issue them slowly, one at a time. And so when you want to buy some token, there's going to be a function that will determine the price of the token, and not only for buying it, but for selling it. And so you could parameterize those two curves differently with two different functions, so that so that you don't have to worry if the parameterization is done right. So, and you never know, but you don't have to worry about someone deciding for the correct price of the deposit, for instance, right? It's going to be continuous. At some point, there's going to be a sort of plateau, if you will, where there is not much interest in buying more tokens because the price at which you're going to be able to sell is not compensating enough the cost of buying tokens. And this is where they talk about the list transforming into a churn, or something that is not evolving anymore. And then it's the point where they're suggesting, and this is why we go back to the infinity concept, is that you're going to see subcategories of the same list starting over, and or maybe a competing list will take the place of the first one. And so you're going to have a sort of moving market from one list to another based on those economic incentives to always produce a up-to-date list with enough economic incentives. But this is not something that should be therefore seen as a end goal of my list is going to be the one, the best list in one field and is always going to be the best one. It's a bit weird, but it's the way I understood it. I don't know if somebody else has another view on the subject. Does that make any sense, Sandra?
Yeah, to me, yes.
Okay. So, and maybe Maxime, you have some ideas about that, but one question I have in general about those products or TCRs is the consumer aspect of consuming the information. If we end up having an infinity of lists for everything, how do we expect consumers to navigate through this infinity of lists, right?
This is a good question. This is a really exciting question where, well, my mind is open and I see like not infinite, but many ways, like promotion. And actually in the promotion of your own list, this is where you can put deposit, kind of deposit. And it's like slowly burning down, for instance, and it's like a combination of all deposits which define how long your list stay in top 3 or top 5 and what is the burning rate. It's like this is I think second level of token economics which come on top of it, where, well, I have only ideas, like I really have not tested anything. At least for quality content I know, like to some degree, because I was writing it for 2 years and I know the price and like how people react. I know something. Here, I have no ideas how to deal with infinite, well, theoretically infinite amount of lists. So I only think that there will be maybe some kind of marketplace, and there will be additional token economy where you will decide, and you can lose something. Yes, this is an important point. Like in a good economies, when you put deposits, so there is a chance if you try to promote a list which is not accepted by many, well, this is your loss. Like in general direction, how I see it. But yeah, what is your idea? So what are you like? How do you see it?
So you would see actually kind of a meta search for list. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, where you have to put on deposit something, like really put on risk, like a stake, like a proof of work, but like basically you are doing work. What we tokenize is it's your skill in creating a good list. Now, if it's good or not, well, market has to decide.
Yeah, it will make sense, and then list will get more and more curated and specific as well, no? And maybe that would be a way as well to interconnect it. And that's the question I had. Do you think actually it makes sense to make them since we're gonna have so many lists, does it make sense to connect them and try to I don't know, bring them together, or actually bring two together that don't necessarily have links? You know, would that be useful or doable?
That's a good. I think a good split. Useful, yes. Doable. I don't know. You're humans. Like we're humans, so interesting creatures. Yeah. Like I have something. Like I'm one of the part of our platform. Yeah. And I know, let's say, 5 or 10 other platforms which are doing complementary or partially what we're doing now. I cannot explain sometimes. With some of them, I go easily into cooperation, even though they may be more competitive for me, whereas the others, they're more natural partners, and I cannot cooperate with them. Like I cannot combine our efforts. So it's like it's really like human nature. We're so social and so sometimes irrational. Here might be the same. You like have two lists, and it makes completely sense to combine them and make one them. But it doesn't happen. They start competing with each other. Yeah. So
yeah, but that's again the paradox, the prisoner paradox, no? Kind of like in the sense that everyone will win to collaborate, but it's not
exactly
what happens.
Unless someone starts, no one is collaborating. But I don't know. Seems to be I don't know, like light years away, but as things in crypto might happen faster than you think.
But at the end, our economy are just always gonna reflect on nature, no?
Yeah.
So
yes, and one aspect that you can't get rid of is the actual amount of value at stake. Put your money where your mouth is. And I mean, I guess for consumers to be able to navigate that infinity of lists, you will need a way to sample lists. And right now, what I say the only parameter that I see could be used to sample all the lists and maybe order them in a new list is to see the amount of stake behind saying or accepting candidates, or saying that this is valid information for consumers. And so I guess that consumers, because so far there is no other way or proposition to do otherwise, is going to be, well, I look at the lists that I need, and within, I don't know, the 100 lists that are available, which is the one with the more stake behind it.
And the stake is made not by a list curator, but the users who like following up, or how do you say it?
That's a good point. I mean, maybe this is where you can start combining human way of evaluating things, which are most of the time irrational, right? So maybe not only the amount of stake behind the list, but also who are the people involved in curating that list. And maybe if you could combine some sort of reputation for participants with the amount of stake, you could have something more robust for a consumer to appreciate the quality of the list.
Maybe, yeah. Well, you see systems getting now maybe more reasonable, but more complicated too.
Yes, for sure.
More mathematic, yeah.
Guys, one quick question. Would it make sense to you if you could provide a greater incentive to somebody who is improving or managing a list towards a better state, rewarded or incentivized to improve instead of create a list? Would that be feasible?
You mean when the incentive lays in the area not creating new list, but participating with the existing to prove its quality?
Exactly.
Yeah. But how can we do it? The idea is, I think it's good. It's good.
That was my question. Would it be possible to set up such an incentive system?
Good question. I have no answer yet.
Yeah, that's interesting, because obviously you don't know the other token holders and what their motivations are when curating the lists. So how many of them, of new token holders, do you need to shift the curating process towards a new direction? You know, if you want to make it better, it means that you have in your head a version of the list which is better. And how do you define that better? With what parameter this is going to be? And then you should communicate that to the rest of the token holder. I think the reason behind TCR getting more and more talked about is because it's really it's a beautiful representation of absolutely free market.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost you anything to create a new list, and there is a potential to do better than the previous one, or at least, I mean, there's no advantage really to not to create a new list. You start again, but you start with the same potential each time. And so maybe this is why we're so excited, or the community is so exciting about TCRs in general.
Yeah. And also it's like keeps constant pressure on existing list curators to keep quality high, because otherwise you're taken away from the market very fast. If you don't take this is a good point. So the question is open. First, do we need to incentivize people rather participate in existing lists than create new ones? And if we do it, how to do it?
I have a complementary question for this. So maybe it would make sense to actually design maybe values or direction. Maybe using crowd wisdom, saying, for example, I want more innovation on this list, or I want more quality, and you ask the crowd, okay, how much do you value the quality compared to innovation? And so you can reward accordingly the incentives according to what the crowd wants. Would it be possible actually to divide or to more narrow down the reward, kind of?
Yeah, I was thinking about the same aspects as you mentioned, wisdom of the crowd, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, then a consumer would need to be able to signal the market with some ideas or some directions that he would like to see the list going in the future. And how do you do so?
Well, I don't know. In the governance system, maybe you can include a feedback process, or incentivize feedback maybe as well.
Well, in governance questions in general, and Ethereum is a good example of that. There is this trade-off between doing all the governance on-chain or leaving part of the governance off-chain. And in Ethereum, for instance, it's a bit of both, right? But we might imagine to structure a governance process for a specific list with some norms or some sort of culture of the list where not everything is decided by voting or by staking tokens to let people candidates being included or not. And so you could maybe start discussions within that community to reorientate or to change a little bit the focus or the way of accepting or not a new candidate. But this, I think, will have to be done off-chain. I don't see how you could let subjective information being used to vote, basically.
It's kind of interesting, no? This on-chain, off-chain governance is like socialism versus liberalism, really. I mean, we have just the same problems now in the blockchain space. I was thinking now if we could even use these kind of lists to define things we can't define by ourselves. So let's say, imagine we would do a cryptoeconomics list, and cryptoeconomics is still such a new topic that so many people have different definitions of cryptoeconomics. Some people say this, others say this. And if we just let the people go on their own, so some people propose articles, and then the people that are already in the token holders will vote. If we can, in this sense, use the wisdom of the crowd to define difficult topics, which we can't define by just having arguments, but by having a system which will always, some people promote new articles and say, this is for me cryptoeconomics, for example. And then the current voters will decide, but because the voters are also changing, more people will maybe buy tokens. And I wonder if we can even use the list to define things in our world. What do you think about this?
Yeah, this is closer to what Maksim was suggesting with an expert version of a TCR. And I mean, there is a reading list on Medium about TCR that even suggested that this could be a TCR itself.
But I'm not talking about experts, because experts already know everything. I talk about situations where no one knows. Let's imagine there's a new topic coming, like token engineering is a different topic. And by creating lists around this topic, you start defining this topic in a democratized, knowledge-based way. So this is what I mean.
Well, until now, it was a bit what was happening, but I mean, it was always more academic that would drive and expertise that would drive or define this area. But if I mean, not everyone will be interested in those new fields, you know, because people are mostly afraid of things they don't know. So I don't think if you introduce a super new topic, random people will go there. It will be only people like curious mind and people that have some kind of expertise in the field. So at the end, it's not a totally democratization of the crowd wisdom. So that actually could bias the crowd wisdom as well. But in a sense, it will make maybe more sense as well, because you then go deeper into the field, right? And you have maybe less different perspectives, but you have deeper knowledge.
Yeah, you could think of, I mean, Medium, the platform, is actually a subset of lists, right? They are more or less organized in categories with the tags and stuff like that. But it is a big list of things, and they have a way to signal the market, which is non-existent, but by those claps, right? And I guess because now in crypto, almost everything is being discussed on Medium, that you could go back in time and see the evolution of this new subject of TCR getting shaped through the amount of clapping that people were making for each new article about the subject. And maybe there are a bunch of new disciplines or subjects in crypto and other fields that hasn't been talked about and discovered by the community just because they haven't received any clap, for instance. So I think, yeah, even if the field is really new, like token engineering or even cryptoeconomics, this is a way. For people to make new or to promote new discoveries that they do, and letting others appreciate those discoveries. Now, of course, who has the best definition of one new field or one discipline? I think it's hard to define beforehand, and I think that's why TCR are really interesting. It's because there is absolutely no barrier to entry to propose a new definition, a new a quality standard for finding the best university where you are, or the best market, or whatever. There's no barrier to entry, so everybody is able to suggest a new list, and potentially this is one tool that we will be able to use to make the wisdom of the crowd idea or goal closer to a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see any connection between TCR and prediction market?
Yes, that's interesting. I was about to mention that. I think that's another application, because coming back to Sandra's idea of defining, we were speaking now of defining a current situation. What about defining a future situation where eventually we will know the outcome, and that consumer, or that candidate, in that sense, who manages to approach the correct or the accurate variable we're trying to seek, he would be rewarded. He would, in a way, be allowed to be part of that list, or become an expert. Not sure how to put it together, but maybe you guys can elaborate.
Yeah, I mean, within a list, you can potentially put any type of information, really. So nothing prevents you from making applications for predictions, right? You could say, well, I will list the best prediction for the I don't know, the national. I don't know, the inflation rate or whatever, a parameter that is being used in another context on my list, and according to the amount of stake that is behind the list, then you can trust this list more, or those predictions more than others. I think that could work. The difference with prediction market, though, is that there is no separate token for each entry in the list, right? Which would be the equivalent in the prediction market kind of world, where you necessarily have to have a specific token that people can buy to signal the market. In the list, this is not it's not the case. But maybe, I don't know. I see those two things competing, actually, and I'm not sure if there's one better from different perspectives than the other. Okay. Any more comments or?
No, I think it was, nice introduction talk, I think, because we should come to it a little bit later when we are a bit deeper into the development process. Very interesting.
Yeah, sure. And I would also like maybe to do another session with other flavors of TCR. As I said, the bonded curve and stuff like that are, I think, quite interesting, because it even goes into new models for doing ICOs, meaning to remove the ICO concept entirely and replace it with a bonded curve type of TCR. And also, I think the consumer side is really interesting. Another aspect I didn't mention, but is how do you actually make sure that consumers are using the list for something in their own specific life? So how do you signal the importance of the list for consumers themselves? I haven't seen any solution to that.
But this is what I meant before with governance. So, for example, if you give the token holders not only the possibility to vote on what is included or not, they could also vote and decide on which activities they use to promote the list, to distribute the list, to make it a success.
Yeah, something here. Yeah, I think something like in this direction. Yeah.
Okay. Then I missed it.
Because
well, I would see it like because it's their own economic interest to increase the value of the token. Yeah.
Exactly.
So maybe something in this direction should work.
And I also have a question because Florent and me, we were talking about, we have created without TCR in the past a list about cryptoeconomics, which needs it's the typical problem of the current world, which needs a really urgent update. And obviously, if we both update this list, it will take us a long time to do this. So we were thinking to transform our list into a TCR, but we both don't have the technology. Do you know, is there already a platform, or how you do you do this, Maksim? Or is there anybody interested in more the technical execution of doing so? Because I'm not an expert, at least in this.
By technical execution, you mean on a design level or on token economy design level, or on the programming?
No, more to actually have a smart contract running a token based transaction when someone is adding an article, or if all the implementation of it. Do you?
Well, we have right now one very nice developer, but I think we've been looking for a second one for quite some time. Where is he based? Where is this person you mentioned? Where is he based?
Which person?
No, she was saying that we don't have the technical skills to do the implementation ourselves. So
okay.
Exactly. We have this Cryptoeconomics list, which I think is of interest of all of us to have this list updated. And so the only thing we are missing is the implementation layer, that someone actually helps us as a community to create the whole implementation, that we actually have a token, that we could be all token holders, all this part, let's say.
Yeah, this is where the problem begins, to find a very nice yet free developer.
I guess the answer, Sandra, to your question is that it's not a plug and play type of technology at the moment, or at least I haven't seen a fast implementation protocol or process to start using that today. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I know that in Kleos they do it, and Clement told me to fork the idea.
Okay.
I don't know. Then let's wait maybe a bit, so that maybe there will become a platform for TCRs, and then we can use this one.
That's a good point, and I mean, if you try to generalize it, it seems that everybody's developing. Many projects are developing their own IDs, and they wait and wait and wait to release the product into the wild. And maybe with TCR, we can find a quick way to start using this and try to see where are the problems, how to solve them, what is the adoption of those products much more easily maybe than with a really advanced platform that are using smart contracts architecture and many tokens and stuff like that.
And we would have data to analyze. I mean, exactly. We can talk and we can discuss for years what will happen if an attack, blah, blah. But if we actually have a real list, we can see in reality what's going to happen. Are people using it? Is the token price increasing? And all this.
Yes.
I'm always for pragmatic approach. Just start building stuff. then you learn so much and so fast.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. But I lack the knowledge in implementing this.
Yeah.
That's why we ask the community if someone would like to build this. Also to the others here in the call, if you know someone or if you by yourself are interested.
Yeah, I would be definitely interested in contributing. I actually already started to, because in French there is really, I mean, and it makes sense because everything that happened in the crypto world is in English anyway. But I started to write kind of the summary to also help me grasp the concepts, like in French, and yeah, I can write in English as well. But right now I'm incubating, and I would be happy to help create content for sure. But I don't know anyone who can build this. Actually, sorry.
Okay, well, I think that's a good way to end the conference. Yeah. I think we will definitely try to figure out a really basic application of TCRs and maybe push for an implementation. But also, if you guys and gals are interested, we could do a second a meeting about the other or the rest of the TCR's flavors that we haven't touched upon.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
sounds very good.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all very much for joining us today. And as always, we hope to see you in the next one. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice Sunday.
Bye-bye.